Hello and welcome to Crushing Comics. I'm your host Peter, and this is Haul Around the World, where I get a brand new haul of comic books from my good friends at In Stock Trades in America who don't pay me at all to say that, I just say it, and I open them and talk about them with you. Spoiler alert, there are no oversized hardcovers in this haul, so if you just want to turn it off right now, you can, because there's none of that nature. Let's see what I've got. I've also already opened the box, so I don't get to huff any American air, because last time we had a thing with packing peanuts, or a couple of times ago. So I'm trying to avoid getting packing peanuts on my suit. Let's see, a lot of Marvel paperbacks in this one. But this one is not a Marvel paperback, it is BPRD Hell on Earth number 5. This is, I believe now, the 10th BPRD collection, because there's 4 in Plague of Frogs, and then there is the one, 1946 to 1948, I believe, which I have back there on the shelf. And then this one. There's something really satisfying about Dark Horse when they commit to one of these Mike Mignola lines of collections. They really commit. They're like, it's gonna happen, you can trust we're putting them all out. You know, DC puts one out and they're like, the sales were low, we're gonna cancel it. Not only does Dark Horse not do that, but Dark Horse goes back to print on a lot of these books to keep them around. You'll notice there's a run of them, all of a sudden they get really expensive, and then they come back. So it's really nice to have an evergreen set that you know you can go in. And would you believe I still have never read anything past Hellboy Library Edition number 1. I guess you could believe it if you see all these. I've made a concerted effort to read a lot of comic books this year. I'm on pace to read over 4,000 this year, as I read over 4,000 the year before, but still no Hellboy. So eventually I'm going to break into these. Who knows, what if I hate them after I've been buying them all this time? Wouldn't that be a sad state of affairs? Let's see what else is in here. So we have, this is interesting because it is kind of an epic collection, but it's not, it's actually a complete collection. It's Iron Fist, The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. What does that mean? Well, if you've watched everything on this channel, you know that there were Deadly Hands of Kung Fu omnibuses, of which this is one. And Deadly Hands of Kung Fu was a magazine that had Kung Fu content in it, but it also had stories. So here's some Kung Fu content. Of course, it's a white page, so you can't really see that too well. I'll try to find one with some color. That article was titled, by the way, Kung Fu versus Karate, which is better. I think probably all the pages are going to be in black and white because it was a black and white magazine, but at least this one has some more illustration you can see. And this is a text piece. So, in any event, in every issue of that magazine, and in fact of many of Marvel's magazines in the 1970s, they actually had comics content too. The same was true for Dracula Lives and a lot of the horror magazines. And in that Deadly Hands of Kung Fu magazine, there was a lot of Iron Fist stories. And up until this point, I think only 1 or 2 of them had been collected, and you had to get those omnibuses to get them. So this is actually a really handy book, because it has all of the Iron Fist stories that were part of that. And that involves, I believe, I want to say some Chris Claremont, because he had his hands in everything. Yeah, Chris Claremont was the primary writer. In addition, 2 stories by Tony Isabella, 3 stories by Doug Munch, a few by Anthony Crafton, a few by Bill Mantlo. So a really great pedigree of Iron Fist stories. These are not generally collected in the Iron Fist Epic Collection, which is pretty much just his whole series. It has Marvel Premiere 15 through 25, which is where he debuted, Iron Fist 1 through 15, and then Marvel Team Up 63 and 64. So if you have these 2 books, you pretty much have the all of Iron Fist before he gets paired with Luke Cage in Iron Fist and Power Man and Iron Fist, which they have also started to Epic Collection. So you definitely want these 2 together. And talking about going back to print, Marvel does go back to print on Epic Collections, because this was out of print and then it came back. So that is proof that Marvel is trying to keep these Epic Collections in print. Here's another one, Iron Man, Return of the Ghost. This is an Epic Collection. It is Epic Collection number 14, as Marvel continues to blow through these Iron Man epics. It collects Iron Man 233 to 244, Iron Man Crash, an original graphic novel, and Marvel Fanfare 22, 23, and 44. I really enjoy when these epic collections seg in the Marvel Fanfare stories, because that was the premium direct market only format of Marvel's anthology series, and I think it's nice when they get collected, because otherwise they're probably not ever going to be collected in a comprehensive way. I do believe that this overlaps a little with the Iron Man by Michelini and Layton omnibus. I could be wrong. but I don't have that. And so I'm just trying to create a complete Iron Man shelf right here, which I will continue to do. 11, 13, 14. All right. The next one up is Cable and X-Force Onslaught. That is a busy cover. My goodness, what is even happening there? That is, who is that? Adam Polina? In any event, this is an extension of the now merged, Ian Churchill probably, the now merged collection line between X-Force and Cable. So this collects Cable 32 through 39 and X-Force 57 through 61, a pretty small piece of X-Force, but also a crossover into Incredible Hulk 444, 2 issues of X-Man 18 and 19, which cross over with Cable, and X-Force and Cable annual. Now, what's really interesting is Cable at this point has been almost entirely collection. I think there's like a handful of issues that haven't. X-Force pretty much goes bare after issue 71 all the way up to around issue 100 for the Powerless or Power Loss crossover, and then shortly, and then Counter X, there's 2 volumes, then it proceeds to what becomes Ecstatics, even though it's still called X-Force. So this brings us within striking distance, maybe 1 or 2 collections further, of that uncollected stuff. Now, we have had some of that in hardcover before. It's in X-Men Operation Zero Tolerance, collects a couple of the X-Force issues, I want to say ending with 70. So there's this big gap starting with X-Force 71, which I call the road trip years, because the core young members of X-Force plus Domino start going on a road trip. You'll notice I'm not really talking about this particular one. I do not happen to know X-Force issues 57 through 61 all that well, so I don't have a lot to say about that. What's interesting to me, though, is does this put them in a reading order? Well, it unhelpfully has no table of contents. Let's see, does it do all of the Cable issues first and then all of the X-Force issues? Because that's not the reading order of these issues. So this does cross over into Onslaught. Some of these issues are in the Onslaught Omnibus, which is hovering above me up there. Let's see, Incredible Hulk. I'm determined to answer this question for you. Incredible Hulk, then we get the crossover into X-Men. I would say, oh, then we got some X-Force. So they did put these issues into a little bit of a reading order. I will have to confirm if it is in the official correct reading order, but that's not something we're going to do right now. Look, there's another half of this order here. Oh, this has got a really exciting one. 2 really exciting ones. The other 3, not as exciting. Okay, let's go. So we have Captain America, the Superia Stratagem. This is Captain America 387 to 397 and the Adventures of Captain America 1 to 4. It is Epic Volume 17. And I want to say this is pretty much all Grunwald. Yeah, Grunwald with some good old Fabian Sezia in it as well. It's a little bit of styrofoam still got on me. So, you know, just same as the Iron Man, filling out. Now, the difference with Iron Man is this, Grunwald's cap is not terrifically well collected, except for a couple of small passages of it. So it's pretty awesome to see them powering through it. An Epic Collection, really one of the best cap runs. It's long, so I think it gets, and it has some ups and downs, so I think it gets a bad rap, but it's actually pretty impressive. So then there's Cyberforce Awakening, Volume 2. Cyberforce Awakening collects chapters 5 through 8. I want to say, is this like a webcomic? No, I think it's not. It was, I think Cyberforce was a webcomic for a little while. I've totally lost track. I don't know if it's like all the same. No, it was a single issue comic. I don't know if it's like all the same Cyberforce. I don't know where it rebooted from. I'm just collecting it out of habit at this point, thinking I'm going to at some point read it. I know I'm bad, but I've gotten much less bad than when I used to buy every single Marvel new thing that came out. And Cyberforce is just one of those things that I've stuck with in print rather than reading digitally, but that means I don't read it digitally, so I don't know what's happening with the print one. As opposed to Euthanauts. This is one of my #1 recommendations from 2018, is one of the top series I read in 2018. It is by a company called Black Crown, which is an imprint of IDW's publishing line. So 2 of the main editors of DC's Vertigo, Shelley Bond and Karen Berger, both in 2018 launched their own comics lines. Karen Berger has Berger Books at Dark Horse. Shelley Bond, under much less fanfare, launched Black Crown, actually I think maybe technically at the end of 2017, at IDW as an imprint. So Berger Books has gotten the fanfare because a lot of big authors and well-known folks wound up going there. The Black Crown books are from a little bit more of an insurgent group that are a little bit newer, younger, fresher. This book is written by Teenie Howard, who just got signed to a Marvel exclusive contract, and Nick Robles, the artist, who is fantastic. Follow him on Twitter. And I just was picking it up because I was trying Black Crown stuff. I loved Punk is Dead. I think I've talked about that here before. And so I picked this up. It is amazing. It captures that amazing old school Vertigo weirdness that kind of blurs the line between a story about real life and a story about something fantastical. It's about a young woman who encounters an older dying woman, and they have a moment that kind of ties her into explorations of the afterlife. And it is so good. It does a wonderful job. There's just one amazing spread. It does a wonderful job of exploring kind of the line between what does it mean to be alive and not alive. Clearly, death draws that line, but it's also about people knowing you and remembering you. Are you alive if you're not known? And are you truly dead once everybody forgets you? There's a lot of amazing moments in here about kind of the context of what it means to friends and family and their relationship to you and how they kind of sustain you. And I honestly couldn't recommend it any higher. It's one of my favorite reads of 2018. It is a really, really nice, well-constructed book. Has a nice, heavy, super glossy cover. The pages are on a nice thick stock. It's really, Black Crown is doing fantastic work. It's $19.99 US, but it'll be cheaper than that on in-stock trades. I think you should buy it. Next up, we have Black Panther. A lot of epics. Sometimes Marvel's just a month where they put a lot of epics out. Black Panther, Revenge of the Black Panther. This is Epic Volume 2, but weirdly, or not weirdly as you think about it, this actually is the first of Black Panther's own series, Black Panther 1. If you look back to the prior Black Panther epic, which is like somewhere down the shelf here, somewhere, here it is. This has Fantastic Four, 52 and 53, but also his solo turn in Jungle Action. So that is what predated his solo series. So this one, the next one, has his entire solo series, Black Panther 1 through 15, then 2 further issues in Marvel Premiere, then Marvel Team Up 100, the story that showed his past meeting with Storm for the first time, written by Chris Claremont, and then Black Panther 1988, 1 through 4. So it's a huge leap. It kind of skips over all of his guest appearance material in the 80s, as it should, because none of it was especially significant. It takes us right through that 1988 series, and I think from there you leap into the Panther's Quest material from Marvel Comics Presents, which has been recently collected. So we pretty much have all Black Panther collected at this point, going from prior to his movie having a couple of specific gaps. Next up, another epic collection. It is Wolverine Epic Collection number 2, Back to Basics. This collects Wolverine issues 17 through 30, some of which I want to say maybe were uncollected before, because that is where he changed over from being written from Chris Claremont, who originally wrote his series. There's no Chris Claremont writing credit in this one. It's Archie Goodwin, Walter Simonson, Peter David, and Joe Duffy. It collects Wolverine and Nick Fury, The Scorpio Connection from 1989, Wolverine, The Jungle Adventure, OGN, where he fights, I believe, Apocalypse, and then Wolverine 17 through 30. From after this, there's not epic collections yet. However, it does pick up in the Wolverine by Larry Hama and Mark Silvestri trades, of which I think there are 2 officially titled that, and then there's a third one somewhere around here that's called something like Weapon X Unbound, but it is effectively Larry Hama and Mark Silvestri Volume 3. So super cool. You could have a very complete Wolverine shelf at this point if you've been picking up Epic 1 and Epic 2, and then you have those other trades. And then finally, saved till last because it's kind of a big deal, we have a previously uncollected portion of X-Men here. It is called X-Men Onslaught Aftermath. It picks up after the Onslaught Omnibus, and it collects Uncanny X-Men 338-340, which was previously uncollected in any modern collection, Annuals 96 and 97, and X-Men 58-61. Also, X-Men Unlimited 12 through 14. If you've been following the collections of a lot of the recent collections, including the oversized ones, Marvel has really set a strategy that they're just going to sequentially collect X-Men Unlimited. It seems like maybe through the low 30s, and then there'll be a companion book that has all the X-Men Unlimited from there forward that's relevant, and also a crossover into X-Factor 130. So I'm really excited about these. They are not issues I've read, although I do own them in hard copy because I didn't have faith that Marvel would ever get here. So you could think of these big, thick X-Men paperbacks that they're still issuing, like the blue and gold volume zeros that got issued in 2018, effectively as epic collections. It would have made perfect sense to label this as an epic collection, except for Marvel, to their credit, has committed to commingling both Uncanny X-Men and X-Men into the same collections where it makes sense, and they did heavily interlink in this late 90s period, but they don't generally do that in epic collections. Epic collections tend to be title or character specific, so we don't have one that necessarily commingles back and forth any two titles other than during a crossover, which is maybe why they didn't go with epic collections. I think that's foolish. I think if you called all these X-Men epic collections, people would catch on and people would gladly buy them because people buy X-Men stuff. But I'm super happy to have this. We're closing in on just a tiny handful of uncollected Uncanny X-Men issues left, and I think it's already been solicited or something. I don't know. There's just so many comic books to remember at one time, but I'm sure if you would go to my website, Crushing Comics, and which is a part of crushingcrisis.com, you would see the up-to-date version of what has been collected, and that's expanding all the time. I just launched 3 new guides a few weeks ago. I've launched, 3 new guides shortly before that. We're always expanding into Marvel, DC, and maybe also some independent and licensed stuff. So that is my haul around the world from In Stock Trades. I'd love to know if you picked up any of those books, and if you had, if I was wrong about anything that I said. And I also would love to know if you haven't picked any of them up, if you're going to be picking up any of them. Euthanauts by Euthanauts. That is my suggestion. So thank you so much for watching. This has been Crushing Comics, and I'm your host, Peter. Take care.